I'm Kenny Salwey, also known as the Last River Rat. I was born on a little dirt farm in Buffalo County, Wisconsin. Buffalo County is hill country. It's a mini Appalachia. Life was really good for me back then. I was chasing grasshoppers and frogs in the meadows and fishing. And then one day my ma called me to the back porch and she said, Kenny, tomorrow you got to go to school. And it all kind of went downhill from there. I was one of the poorest students you could probably ever find because I was always looking out of the windows wishing I was outside. I'd do anything if I didn't have to go to school. And so I struggled along through school, and then I went in the Army in 1961. I was in Fort Lewis, Washington, and Fort Dix, New Jersey, and some other places. And I came back to Buffalo County, and I became a river rat. A river rat, in my case, is somebody who made a living fishing, hunting, trapping, digging roots, collecting herbs, living an old-style way of life. And I picked a place called the Whitman Swamp, and there I inherited an old shack called the Marsh Shack, and then I built another shack called the Tent Camp, which was canvas stretched over peeled poles. I built another shack called Big Lake Shack, and Big Lake Shack is still there as well. That sits on higher ground and has kerosene lamps for light and wooden bunks, a wood-burning stove. And those three shacks became my home for the next 28 years. People would say, well, I was poor, or you were poor. I never felt poor, I felt rich. Rich in outdoor experiences, and rich in the fact that I didn't have to call anybody boss. I took up reading, and I call it playing catch-up. And I don't mean the kind you put on your hamburgers. This kind of catch-up, you take a book and you open the book and you follow the words, and then I'd come to one I didn't know. Then I take down another book called Webster's Dictionary, and I look that word up and try to spell it and pronounce it and use it in its correct context. And that takes forever. I used to get bank calendars that had huge squares each day, and then every day I would write down 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, what the weather was, how I felt that day, what I saw in the natural world. And so I guess I was keeping a journal, is what you would call it. I read by kerosene lamps and wrote as well. No matter how tired I was, I would always try to find time to do both. So I wrote this poem. There were about 8 verses to it, maybe 20 years ago. And then it kind of laid around, gathered dust, and sometimes I would recite it at a talk or such. And then Sam Shinta, the publisher, saw it, and he said, why don't we make a children's book out of it? And so that's what we're at right now. He's got an illustrator, but I had to write a lot more verses, so I've got 16 verses now, and it just talks about a night in the swamp and how all the critters gather together and they have a party, so to speak, a ball, a dancing ball. It begins with, some say it smells, but you never can tell what the black swamp mean to you till you stayed all night where there ain't no light and the swamp's dark secrets come true. Now the black swamps moan and sometimes they groan. It's a strange concerto indeed, but the bullfrog song seems to drift along. It's a tune we all now and then need. A big fat toad rests his fat toady load nearby on a rotten old stump. He huffs and he puffs and he almost gives up, 'cause his seat is too small for his rump. And so it goes through possums, coyotes, skunks, deer, beaver, toads, frogs, raccoons, snakes. So that's what that'll be about. But it takes a lot of illustrations for that, probably one for each verse. What I'm just doing here today is going over these verses of this poem. I'm ready to jump right into her. There was two verses that I thought needed a little tweaking here. The one previously read, the rascal raccoons run around the lagoons, their black mass hiding them some. All they want to do is play peekaboo and climb a tree for some fun. I wrote that as, the rascal raccoons run around the lagoons, their dusky mass hide them some. I changed the word black mass to dusky. Kids sometimes could use some, I would call them unusual words, just to catch their attention. What is dusky? What does that mean? Henry David Thoreau wrote a poem about crows once, and he called them the dusky souls of the woods. And that captured my attention. And then I had to look up the word dusky. Then the other verse, let's see, that was, turtles galore sit up clapping for more. They enjoy this dance in the dark. Some turtles have trouble getting there on the double, yet all of them find their mark. And I just changed it just to one word again. Some have trouble getting there on the double. Some turtles have trouble. It was cumbersome. Sometimes you get too many words, but you're still, the same meaning is still there. So I just took the one out. I'll have to do some more of this.